Hello, my name is Emmett, and I am a transgender man. I realize there's more to my identity than that, but as of late, it seems to be all I can think about. I have to. When I think about meeting a new person or talking to old people that may not necessarily know about my new gender identity, or even going to the bathroom, it's something I'm constantly having to worry about. When it comes to public bathrooms, I attempt to avoid them altogether because there's not usually a lot of gender-neutral single-stalled bathrooms in public places. So I would either be forced to choose between man and woman restrooms. So even if I really have to go, I'll probably choose the one meant for women. And that makes me feel like a failure when I do that. It feels like I'm giving up on something. It's a feeling I've been having a lot lately. Every time someone calls me by my birth name, calls me she or miss or whatever, I'm getting better at correcting people I'm comfortable with, but I still don't want to do it. I don't want to draw attention to the fact that I'm different, and it just makes me uncomfortable. So I just try and ignore it and avoid it and keep on going. I do my best to just keep it hidden. Lately, I've been getting really tired of people not knowing I exist. By that, I don't mean as an individual, but I mean as a transgendered person. I know that if I asked people if they support the LGBT community, they would say yes, or at least most would. But how many of those people would be able to tell me what the T stands for? And of those people, how many of them would ask my preferred pronouns? I myself am heavily involved in the queer community, and I still am guilty of being cisnormative. Whether I want to have those expectations or not, I only assume someone is trans based on a stupidly instilled ideas or requirements they may meet. Otherwise, I seem to almost always be taken off guard, and for that, I'm pretty ashamed. Unfortunately, even I have remaining ways of thinking left from my upbringing, and that's something I'm willing to take absolute responsibility for, and will work to change in the future. However, I've recently discovered there's something I'm not willing to do that for, and that is being trans enough. If you don't know what I mean by that, it's basically this. Adhering to other people's perceptions and expectations of what it is to be trans in order to be validated by the outside world with what gender or lack thereof you identify with. These expectations include, but are not limited to, having the appropriate hair, name, clothing, makeup, mannerisms, voice, etc. For instance, in my case, one could argue that because of my frequent use of makeup, high voice, occasionally feminine wardrobe, strut, walk, or even my birth name, they would have no way of knowing if I was trans or not. A good way to know? Ask. It's something that's pretty easy to do, and if someone doesn't know what you mean, then clarify, what gender do you identify by, and they'll probably give you an answer. And what pronouns to use. It's because of that standard that even people within the trans community feel other and outside if they don't adhere to what is stereotypically feminine or masculine or androgynous. It's something that I have to deal with every day. It gives people the power to not recognize someone's gender at all. speaking for myself, I would have never considered myself a boy until recently if it hadn't been for breaking down of those ideas. With traditional gender norms, I loved skirts and dresses and makeup too much to be considered a man. And even if I had been born in a male body, I now realize I would have dressed the exact same, because that's the style I like. I like being boys someday and being girls someday and having stereotypically androgynous or whatever clothing. I like doing me. So, that. I guess I kind of want to speak to why I consider myself trans at all. So, here it is. I want to be a boy. I want to be referred to with he pronouns. I like the idea of having an aesthetic with a flat chest and having a deeper voice. And I cringe when people say she. This is why I consider myself trans. And that's just about it for me. I mean, I grew up hearing stories of trans people saying that they had known since they were a kid, always deep down, that they were a boy or a girl. That it was something they grew up with. I didn't feel that way. I mean, sure, I was a tomboy when I was a kid. Like, I liked to wear baseball caps and dresses and mix the stereotypically female and male style, but I never considered myself in the wrong body. And it's because of that feeling that I feel like fake. Like, I haven't experienced the same things other trans people have, so I don't have the right to call myself trans. When society tells me I'm confused or that I chose this, I'm inclined to believe them. I constantly question and second guess my position in the queer community because this all just seemed to happen so fast. It wasn't until my last year of high school I started experimenting with male fashion and started wearing binders, things like that. So that was 2 years ago. I had the same feelings about bisexuality because I didn't always know, so I wasn't really gay. It was only after I realized I had types of people I was attracted to and not necessarily genders that I felt more comfortable identifying as pansexual. Like, it gave me a legitimate way of explaining myself and an Archimedean point I could root myself in and build off of. Basically, I like feminine men and masculine women and androgyny. Those were my types, I guess you could say. I know, so that's how I more or less secured my mind on that subject. As for gender, I know I want to prove people wrong. When they say I'm just going through a phase and I'll come out of it eventually, and it pushes me to make decisions I know I'm not ready for, like making a legal name change or getting a serious, like, life-altering surgery. I just want to do it so badly because I want to be validated for who I am. But honestly, I'm okay with the body I was given. I like it, but if I want other people to see me the way I do, a man in a body people say is for girls, I might have to make those decisions to find acceptance. I'm worried one day I'll just give up fighting for my identity and conform to what other people say I am. I really don't want that. I want to be able to change my gender on official documents without committing to a surgery on my genitals. I want people to ask my pronouns without assuming anything based on my body. Instead of being what other people say I am, I want to show them that people are who they say they are. I know I have to stand up and talk about these issues to people who may not otherwise know or be ignorant about, because my community needs that. if we don't talk about our experiences and knowledge, things aren't going to get better because people will continue to be unaware. We have to be strong for each other so we can make it better for further generations. According to a recent interview I watched about a trans woman, the statistic for cis people committing suicide was 2 to 3%. And for trans people, it's almost 40 to 60%. And that's almost half. So I can tell you that I'm a pretty damn cheery person. I have been all my life, just really happy and easygoing. And it wasn't until recently I started having these feelings of dread every day, of knowing that I was going to get misgendered by strangers, and there was like nothing I could do to stop that unless I wanted to permanently change my body or my name or how other people saw me. And it was that kind of realization that I was going to be stuck as being seen as a woman unless I made permanent changes to my body I'm not comfortable with, that made me realize, why people have those thoughts. Like, trans people have thoughts about suicide. It seems inevitable. I mean, I haven't been doing this forever, but so far my experiences have both been wonderful and absolutely terrible. I didn't know what it was like to be misgendered every day. I didn't know what it was like to face transphobia every day. Being correctly identified for who I am now feels like a privilege instead of a right. And it's because of that we need to fight. Because of as self-conscious as I may have been about correcting people for myself, or how much I put up walls and try to ignore it, I have transgendered friends. I went to school with people who would be misgendered by teachers and friends and family members, and it would make me cringe every time it happened. Now I know why my friends are so committed to being defensive of me and my pronouns, because I know what it's like to hear someone else address a friend incorrectly. No matter how much I don't want to draw attention to myself or make it go away by ignoring it or avoiding it, it makes my friends not as uncomfortable as me, but yeah. So, as much as I might not want to acknowledge it, it takes its toll. I can ignore it and push it to the side and try not to draw any attention to the subject, but it all comes back, and it all still hurts. And it chips away at you every time it happens until you're too broken and sore and tired to fight anymore. So, for those of you who still have energy, please fight. And by that I mean fight to stay alive. And be kind to people if you can muster it. And kindly explaining your problems to people who may not understand makes a big difference. And I know how hard it is to stand up to people, but it's worth it. It's worth it for everybody. So yeah. Struggling with my gender identity. And that's all for today.